Cheers, mix, click, and code with boozy browsing, sipping and fixing the web one cocktail at a time.
So today we have Tim Heimbender, my old friend and also like old client, and as well as coworker slash we worked together for over like 10 years now, right? Almost 10 years?
Uh, I think we worked together on and off at Bloomberg for maybe like 6.5.
Right. But
But I
it
mean, we've
goes
known
back
each
to like
other like longer
really
than
long
that.
time. Yeah. So but I had privilege to have Matt here. Not Matt. Matt's not here today. So I have Tim here instead. I just wanted to start talking about some, tech of anything, but like just kind of give a quick intro of Tim. Do you want to do your intro? I don't know. I know you as friend, and then also the places I work with you at, but
Yeah,
how?
no, yeah, no. So my name is Tim. I've been a software engineer for I mean, I don't want to say like exact years now, but I met Miki about 10 years ago when I started working at Bloomberg. And yeah, like we worked together in the marketing department there for a while, and now I've been at Square for the last 3 years. So yeah, like my journey has been like as an engineering IC at a few large organizations. Never really like, got like a big variety of companies, but I spent a lot of time at individual companies. So Miki, you and Matt sort of like we were just saying, like you went in the opposite direction where you went like broad rather than deep in terms of like number of companies that you've worked with, just because you've gotten to experience like so many different cultures and like forms of like org structure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're a full stack developer, and also he's also very fun to hang out with. It's always a great story, especially if we went to conferences together, or like even inside the Bloomberg on Halloween days and
Yeah,
all
that's
random
that's
things.
why I wore the shirt from the first time we went to work camp in Nashville, 2017.
Yeah,
Just dug this out for the talk today,
yeah, and
figured.
I'll have
Yeah.
some reference pictures to put up if we
Oh
can.
my god. Like
Um,
that
yeah.
was fun.
Yeah. Before we go ahead, this is the most important thing for Matt, but he's not here. But we should actually also introduce our drink. Um, I'm actually going with the older drinks that I had before because I didn't get a chance to go out, and my drinks was supposed to still get delivered, but it got delayed. So I'm just gonna go with Food Ranger.
Oh,
It's a juicy haze IPA. I actually really
had
like
those.
the the actual can, so I'm just gonna do that.
Oh, the cans are always awesome. Like the one I'm going with today is a pot de cream stout. I believe it's an untitled one. I don't think it has like an actual name from the brewery that produces it. But I mean, speaking of like awesome looking cans, like this is just great design. And I mean, it does taste like a chocolate shake. It is just very nice. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm a big
what's the
fan of
name?
like
What's the name of it again? We usually go to their site and to see if they're good.
I haven't even checked their site. It is, let's see, it is Three Sons Brewing Company in Milwaukee.
How do you spell it?
Just the number three sons.
3 Sons?
Yeah, three sons,
Oh,
like children.
okay. Let's see if I can share this.
So there's like two different cities listed here.
Is this it?
So
3 Sons Brewing Company?
I think it is.
Dania
Yeah,
Beach.
Dania
Oh, so
Beach.
you
Yeah.
actually got the Florida beer.
Yeah, no, I did notice that because yeah, there are two addresses here. That's why I was like doing a double take because I was like, wait, why Milwaukee? Or oh wait, no, that says not Milwaukee, Waunakee, Wisconsin. But again, it's still like two different cities, so
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
But the funny thing is, like, it was a challenge for me to find the Florida beer. I only found 2 so far, but you actually found the Florida beer.
Okay.
Pretty cool looking. Yeah. They have a more than beer? Is this a beer? That's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, no. Like my wife was basically just ordering from this one like craft beer delivery service, like starting during COVID. So we have like an entire pantry full of like all of these different artisanal beers from breweries like all over the country.
Oh,
So I just went with like whatever we had just put in the fridge the other day, and this just looked perfect. And yeah, like I was seeing, that this was produced in Florida. So I was like, okay, Mickey's in Florida,
yeah.
like let's see if she's heard of them.
Nice. I'll try that next time. So before we do that, we always kind of look at their sites. Let's see. Design-wise, it's pretty generic. It looks like pretty boilerplate, but
Yeah.
it's functioning, so it's not bad, but the menu's a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, like, if the worst that they've got is no active state for a sub menu, like, that's, like, not as bad as we've both seen. Because honestly, like, they're doing
Oh,
okay, well, that's not
well.
great.
So
Okay,
here's our rule. So like, if you see anything like that, we drink.
I'm down.
Oh, what's this? So widget
That is
didn't
that is
load.
chocolatey.
Is it? So all right. So there's one bug, but I mean, we've seen a lot of sites kind of like go to the really far spectrum to the other spectrum. It's really bad. Then nothing's functioning. As to the other ones, like it's really nicely done, but most of those actually have events and like a store associated to it. But they look like they have some store food menu going on here.
I mean, if it's a brewery, then they probably have stuff that you can buy right there. No, I mean, I'm just seeing, like drinks, I'm not seeing food.
Oh,
Is there
that's
food?
true. Hmm, interesting. But this is also going to a different site, so it's a different experience. It's not really seamless. They have events, yeah, but it looks like some it's maybe not to a degree that they need to redesign it. All the design looks a little old, but they probably need to fix some of the links or widgets. And when they're saying widgets, is this WordPress sites?
Let's find out.
Unless I get full. It's Wix.
No, yeah,
So no. Oh, well, it's a Wix site. Anyways, so cool. So it's very chocolatey. Is that a stout or what kind of beer is it?
that's definitely a stout. I mean, they bill it as a pot de cream stout.
Mm,
Um, Mexican style chocolate. Oh my god, I'm tasting all of these notes. Um, yeah, imperial stout with nuts, cocoa, cinnamon, vanilla, brownie, and milk sugar, and I am tasting every one
everything.
of those ingredients. I told you this is a dessert beer, and I am just like loving it.
Oh, last time I made a mistake that I noticed that I don't really drink beer, so I didn't know different kinds of beers or what I would like. And then I like Guinness. That's the only beer I used to drink. Matt is like, and I didn't know difference between IPA and stout, so I was keep buying
Uh,
IPA because I was going off of the how what's it called? How the can looks like or the cover looks like.
yeah, it's a very, very different flavor.
Right. And then I was like, I wasn't loving it. And then like so when he told me that you probably like stout, so I got the stout, but I don't drink coffee afternoon because I'm super sensitive to caffeine, so I can't drink
Oh,
any caffeinated thing. And then the one I got last week was like a dragon's milk. I don't know if you had it. I guess it's a known it's very good one, but it actually has a coffee flavor in it, so I can taste the coffee in it.
well, just because it's coffee flavor doesn't mean it has like actual caffeine in it. Like,
So, I don't know, maybe it's mental, but I was like I actually went to bed really late that day.
I could see that though.
Whatever.
Yeah, because honestly, like whether it's just flavor or if there's actually caffeine, like I never risk it. Like there's a local brewery that produces this one like French press like stout, and it's really good, but I rarely drink it because it's like, the only time I'm really drinking a beer is like close to the end of the day, and I don't want any caffeine around the end of the day.
Yeah. But, sorry, my the drinks I ordered just arrived. My husband just put it in front of the door.
Just in the nick of time.
Yeah, I'll show you. This is a pretty interesting one. So, I wanted some clown beer because I saw well, because 'cause I'm in the game room, so why not? But um, it wasn't available here. It was from, like, some other state. So, I found this. It's like a Jodo 1 cup sake. But
That's
there's like
awesome.
kind of cool looking thing going on here.
That's good packaging. That's just
Look
great
at that, look
design
at that. Like,
there.
again, so like, yeah, it's like probably easy to see it like that. But since I started my beer, I'm not gonna mix it.
No, no, it's not Friday. Like, we don't need to deal with that the next day.
Anyways, so we wanted to kind of talk about a couple different things, but it's more casual because I wanted to kind of hear your experience because I know you from Bloomberg on, but also Bloomberg to Square is probably very different. So I'm kind of curious about your experience and just kind of working with open source, predominantly WordPress to now Square. You're not using that at all, and even for the CMS you're working on, you've told me that you're using headless, and kind of curious about your experience on that as well. So, just kind of like in general, I know you've worked at Bloomberg for how long?
About 6.5 years. And I've been at Square for 3. So, like, at both companies, I was on, like, a couple of different teams in, like, slightly different orgs, so, it gave me some perspective on 2 different companies. Oh, and
You know,
there's my little doggy friend.
yeah, I can't let my cat in because he's gonna go crazy with all these little things, toys out there. So,
Yeah, no, like, he's usually pretty good, when people are in meetings, he's good about knowing, like, don't start jumping on me, you know?
all
But
right, so
yeah,
it's always
yeah,
fun
there's
to see
definitely.
cats out there. Alright, so, like, from Bloomberg, I know when you were in the marketing engineering team, it was all pretty much open source and LAMP stack based. I know I don't know if you use any other ones, like maybe small apps here and there with Lambda stuff, but I don't you probably didn't get to do too much of it. But you moved to a different team, I remember, but I don't remember if you actually used different language or what was the difference?
Yeah, the syndication team had a lot of, like, Node apps.
Okay.
So we had, like, a couple of different, like, listener apps to consume, like, subscription pub subs. And I'm trying to remember, like, what we did there, but it was a small part of, like, the time that I spent, like, at Bloomberg. Um, I think I was only on that team for, like, maybe 9 months or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, a lot of the time I was there, I was just in marketing.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, I mean, it's not like we're not using open source tools at Square. Like, for a lot of what we work on, like, it does incorporate different frameworks and different, like, forms of tooling that are open source, and we do contribute to those at certain points. Um, it's just not working on WordPress there in my current role.
Okay. So you still use Node app or some extension of it or what do you what's your day-to-day language that you kind of deal with now?
Sure. I
I
mean,
know it
the apps
changed
that I
too.
work with.
Yeah.
The what?
I know it changed too because you went to a different team from when you initially were
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I mean, I've been on, like, a couple of different teams while I was at Square. I spent a lot of time on the dashboard team, which builds out Square's, like, back end, like, seller experience application. That is currently a large Ember monolith that's being pared down as we refactor a lot of different parts of that into different, like, different micro front ends. But for the most part, while I was on that team, I was working, like, with Ember,
Mhm.
as well as, like, a couple of other, like, small, like, TypeScript based libraries. It was an interesting experience. Like, I've never worked with, like, I think at this point it might be, like, the largest monolith, built in Ember on Earth. Ever since, like, LinkedIn migrated, like, their Ember app to React.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Pretty cool. I don't know too
yeah,
about Ember, so like I can't really ask any smart questions on that.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it's like a stateful JavaScript framework. It's got, like, this whole, like, route controller view model to it.
Mhm.
It's interesting, but I feel like Square is probably the biggest consumer of that technology and is actively trying to migrate away from it. Um, but Yeah, I mean, there's been like a lot of contributions to the open source community just from that. I think um, Square has contributed a lot in terms of like the Ember Inspector, like the Chrome extension for that, just to name like one example, because they wanted to be able to run like multiple Ember apps on a single page at one point. So they needed to do a lot of heavy lifting to get the inspector to the point where it wouldn't choke on that.
Hmm. Okay, so that's interesting. So how when because you're a full stack developer, so you especially at Bloomberg, when you're dealing with all the lamp stack, you're full stack to just kind of touch it. One of the well, at the time you're there, it was a lot of people understood it, but it's one of the rarity that like the people who understand the truly full stack there. Is it still the case for you to work on full stack, or do you kind of are
Well,
you on
the
like
thing is,
your
like, every company has its own standards for what constitutes full stack. Like, this is a conversation we've had so many times in the past. Like, the way that Square views full stack is different than how Bloomberg viewed full stack. Like, I've been on teams at Square where I was like purely in a front end role or
Mhm.
like where I was in a full stack role. And, the expectations for what you actually work on can vary wildly. We also have digital or, yeah, a design technologist at Square, which in some companies is called creative technologists. They're basically like the front of the front end. They're even like in the design department in this company, where you have people who are dedicated purely to front end, and that is their role, like working with design to like not just prototype, but like build out like working front end components like for the platforms that their content management, supports. So it's like I've never seen that kind of role at Bloomberg. So yeah, it's like you can have very different roles at different companies, and it's like sometimes if all you have is experience with one, two, or three companies throughout your career, like you won't even know that these roles even exist.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see that because I remember front end developer when for the agencies, even before we were in Denver, the front end developers we had actually were that what you described because they're not just designers. Like they're not specifically designers. Like they just pretty much put the front end like a CSS, JavaScript, and then like just like the whole front end prototype pretty much. Built that and then hand it over to the next, like a developer to actually integrate with the backend system. Although that kind of became a little hazy when the compilation language, like the LAS or SAS came out, because some people didn't adapt to get to that, or some people didn't understand JavaScript either. Because until query, I was thinking that, but that's when front end developers can actually use the JavaScript easily to kind of implement what they can prototype too. But then quickly enough, the JavaScript became like, not a lot of people, developers especially, didn't want to use it for a while now. Even though it's still like an easy way in to do some of the JavaScript stuff. So that's how I understood as front end. But then these days it's a little hard to not know a little deeper into technology as a front end developer.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like that was the way my career progressed. Like I started off like very early on, just like learning how web pages worked at all, just like understanding how different elements worked on a page, and then just getting deeper and deeper into JavaScript. And then, of course, that led to, up the stack, like farther into the back end.
Hmm.
Um, and then when I just ended up going to college and just like learning only back end languages, for the theoretical exercises that totally will land you a job, totally will land you a job. Like I was able to like put A and B together and, like just become like a full stack developer.
Yeah, I mean, I think I told you about this at one point during many of our conversations that having that computer science background, you might not know when you're actually in computer science classes or in college, but later on, when you're kind of putting it together, it gives you a better understanding of the bigger picture. Because like if I've noticed a lot of people who did like one of those like quick courses to become a developer because it was like a thing. You can take like a short duration of some courses online or some short program from like different colleges to get to it. You know the difference because their depth of understanding is not as deep as the people who actually have a computer science background. So, some people actually get it eventually because the fast learners, they wanted to kinda dig deep into what they're doing and then get the understanding, but a lot of times people don't. So, I think having that background for you probably made you quicker to go, like, understand bigger picture than other people who don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that like varies heavily depending on the company's needs.
Mhm.
Like if like you could be hiring at like a small startup versus like a large enterprise, and like the kinds of problems that need to be solved like require totally different skill sets. And it's like how much information do you need going into it? Because if you're just designing a site that is going to be thrown away in 6 months, like, are you trying to solve scalability problems for that?
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, we've worked on like so many projects over the years where it's like, hey, we're iterating so fast, we don't even need to add tests for this because it will be gone in a month. So at that point, yeah, you can like create the platonic ideal of a site, but you don't need to have that knowledge or like that level of understanding to create something that is great, great quality for what it needs to be.
Yeah, I remember I think we recently had this conversation that um when we needed to build something simple enough to roll out fast enough, but we had a old colleague that we worked together, we decided to build it like a rocket when we need a bicycle.
I remember you using that phrase over
Yeah,
and over again. They built a rocket when they just needed a bicycle,
yeah.
and it's like,
'Cause, like, I was
like
trying to explain that to, non-technical people, like, ho to kinda give the analogy to it, and I was just like, "But they're not gonna know." But I just wanted to explain that, like, "Yeah, this wasn't needed, but, like, this is how it looks like." Because it's a website, we need to push out the prototype's pace, and we constantly iterate upon it. So the base thing that we wanted to push out didn't need to be that complicated. He's a smart guy, and he was trying to be very, very wanted to think of all the edge cases before he actually push out the launch.
it like I keep bringing this like parable up like over and over again. It's like the lumberjack who's too busy trying to cut down a tree to sharpen his saw. Like I remember like reading that in like I think it was like one of Will Larson's books on like engineering, and I was like, yeah, like that's a really succinct way to put like over engineering. It's like you're so focused on one hyper specific problem that like you're totally missing out that there's like way more efficient ways to solve it.
Right, and also, like, when you're taking forever to build things, by the time you roll that out, that technology might be obsolete.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why I'm saying like, you could be building something out, but does it need to be perfect, if it's not going to like survive for that long in the wild.
Right, yeah, and especially in technology, because like, things come out so fast, and it's faster these days, so it's gonna be interesting. I'm kinda curious about people who used to over-engineer a lot of things. Um, their view changed as they progressed with their careers or they went to different companies and see more things.
I mean, it's going to be really interesting to like see how this industry changes over time because like years ago it was like web was still like a very young industry, and now we're like seeing like new generations of developers, and it's like, the interactions between like older and newer developers, like that's a really interesting thing to watch happen like in
Mhm.
real time.
Do you work with long range of that type of developers right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a good range of developers like throughout their 20s and 30s that I work with.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not asking them like how old they are, but like you can just you
tell.
can see like differences in opinions, differences in mindsets, and it's just fascinating. It's like everyone's still just tied together with like common loves of just engineering and just building stuff. But the way it gets expressed, it's like it's become more and more interesting and varied.
That's pretty interesting. Because do you see any patterns on the newer engineer or junior engineers?
Uh, I mean, it's hard to tell just because it's like every time I ask, like, ask myself, like, are there patterns? It's always like, well, is this just a function of the teams that they've been on? Or
Mhm.
is this like a generational trend? And it's like, it's really, really hard to tell.
Yeah, that's always that's always very hard because, like, this is the conversation I always had with Betty because, like, we're seeing some patterns, but we're trying to differentiate if it's a cultural thing or if it's a generation thing or is this the team thing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's going to become more apparent in the future, like when younger developers start getting like wider ranges of experience over time and become way more senior and are able to talk about their different types of experiences and bring different perspectives. I mean, because right now they've got very interesting like viewpoints, but how's that going to change by like the mid 2030s?
What it did you reflect that with your own self and see, like, how your perspective changed?
I mean, I have occasionally just like thought about like how my approach to just building things has changed over time
Mhm.
because it goes like hand in hand with like the journey up the stack and just like learning more and more about different systems and infrastructure because it's like like just looking back on how I approached building things 10 years ago is so foundationally different from how I would approach it today. And I'm like, if I'd had myself as a mentor back then, like, what direction would I have even gone in?
Yeah.
It's
Do
really
you
interesting to ask yourself that.
Yeah, because ask myself this a lot too, but, like, do you think that's the normally the technology that changed or the platform or whatever the tools that you use changed versus what I'm trying to say is, like, how much of that is on tooling and then system and all the things that you use versus you yourself has changed?
I honestly, I think it is way more about the individual than the tools because, like, just look at the difference in tooling now compared to like a decade ago. It's like taking AI out of the equation. Like, it's like I mean, that's just a sea change for everyone. And it's like, if that had existed back then, like we'd all be having very different discussions now.
Right.
But like the way that you fundamentally approach like design and implementation, like, yeah, you can use AI to streamline parts of it, to speed up parts of it. But, you have to have a plan going into it. Like, AI is not going to tell you how to design infrastructure and if it does, and that's what's just what you're implementing, like, good luck. Best of luck. I hope you have a really, really solid model behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
do want to touch AI stuff later because I don't know if we talked about it, but I am in the same, opinion as you do because, like, it still needs a lot of overseeing because you can get into a rabbit hole really quickly with AI.
100%.
Yeah, so, like, that's one of the topics that always it comes up because it's, like, it's out there and it's, like, a lot of bigger people's concern, but I also wanted to touch on the headless one because we were talking about that the other day, and I wanted to see your because 'cause you're really deep into working with it, so I'm kinda curious about your opinion on it because, like, I did have some experience from our clients moving out of headless to just traditional CMS that is has the full thing that most of the functionality that's already there. But, I'm kind of curious about your experience with it because you're heavily using that right now.
Sure. So like right now, we've basically been moving like from a Rails monolith to a bunch of microservices that render pages like headlessly. Um, that was like the worst way I could have phrased that. But yeah, like uh So like as we've been like migrating these different components, different parts of pages, like we've been trying to just like split things up into more modern microservices so that we could actually like maintain like scalability on these a lot better than we have been in the past.
Hmm.
Because like just trying to maintain like a giant Ruby monolith for like thousands of pages was just starting to become like a performance bottleneck and just painful from a maintenance perspective. Because at a certain point, like it's a technology that a lot of companies don't want to invest in. Um, just because you can't really like easily hire for that skill set, and it's just not the direction that a lot of the industry has gone in. So yeah, like we've made a lot of progress on that front.
So, do you know? I mean, I know you probably didn't start headless yourself, but do you know the reason behind why you guys actually, your team actually picked headless approach versus going traditional CMS for your internal thing?
Well, I mean, so the CMS that we use is only headless. So like we were basically just consuming like CMS content into a monolith and then rendering it. So we were basically just using a monolith for headless CMS anyway.
Hmm.
So it didn't make sense not to just build out different services to handle that same data. Um it's like imagine that you were building a WordPress site and all you had was structured metadata for like post meta or something.
Hmm.
That's basically like what we had. So there was no front end coming from the CMS.
Okay.
So like this was just a way to make it more efficient what we were already consuming.
Oh, okay. So was it like it was pretty much like easy decisions on that. I mean, we did have that because before the headless was actually a thing, there were clients that they needed that type of, because just create an API and just feeding in, because like there's no front end portion to it until really, really later. So we ended up building it, and at the time we didn't even know it was headless because the term didn't exist. But it's literally, it's, if you think about it later on, it was headless.
I mean, like the whole concept of just separating out like the content from like the front end rendering, like that was revolutionary a couple of years ago.
Right.
I remember when like WordPress just like merged in that REST API, and I was like, whoa, like this is great. Like you can consume like all of your content on different apps now. Like what a treat.
Yeah. But even before WordPress actually bring out like the REST API portion to it, because there were ways to do it. Because like I remember when we had, I don't remember exactly what project it was, what client it was, but we had to do that. Like we had to actually make
Yeah.
sure that it's available for other system to consume all the contents that are created in the admin interface. But I think REST API may have just came out, or we had to use a different technology to add on to make it as a REST API, or I think we even used WSDL at the one point to
Oh god.
send it in.
Yeah. Well,
So
there was, like, the admin AJAX endpoint to just, like,
right.
send arbitrary data,
Mhm.
and I think the Met actually provided a REST API plugin to WordPress, like, before it had native support for that. Because I
Yeah,
remember
so
using that.
initially we were using plugin for that because we had to use the plugin to handle that, but before that was even available, because that's JSON format. Before that, it was a proprietary, different format, but you have to
Yeah,
write
the
separate.
RPC stuff, like, I
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
it's very different thing. I remember because I think it was part of migration that we had to do because it was coming from different systems, but they have their own languages. So in order for us to consume that, we have to work with their team to send them what format we needed. And a lot of it were combination of is either XML, WSDL, and a bunch of other things to consume it. And then we have to write the custom script to consume that data into the system. So it's the technology that's been around, but it got streamlined and then it was easier to do it after the whole standardization of REST API or JSON and all that stuff came out. And then even after GraphQL, then there's like a different ways to do it faster in different ways. But I remember like just thinking like when headless term came out, I was like, oh, it's a term that everyone's gonna get hooked on, but it's not the new technology that's it's out there.
No, it's always fun when like a new name is just applied to a concept that has just existed in practice for a long time, and suddenly like vocabulary has grown, and
Yeah.
now there's a word for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that like technical people who have been around, like, or even like you understood like when I was explaining a bunch of other things before, so you're aware of it. But to explain that to the people, like marketing people per se, or business people per se, that it's something that like the hot topic, hot words,
Yeah.
they might understand, but they might not either if they're not really paying attention. I mean, it's good that those terms kind of bring up for the people who have to explain it to the other end. I don't know if you have that experience because I know you did work with non-technical people a lot, and you were doing the translation to non-business people. Like, especially, I remember like when we were doing the BQL project, that you were doing that role. Do you still have to do a lot of those kind of the roles to kind of explain to non-technical people?
Little bit. I mean, there are like some project meetings that I'm in where, there is like a level of translation, but like like we were talking about, like the vocabulary has just like increased around tech. So a lot of people are just more knowledgeable than they used to be. So like the communication gap is like probably less than it used to
Oh,
be.
really? Yeah. That's actually good because I don't I wonder if it's your company or not because like I still find that
Yeah.
it's harder to speak to non-technical people.
Well, that again, that goes back to what we were talking about. Like, is this just like a function of the team or the org, or is it like a wider trend? And it's like it's so hard to tell when you're like right in the middle of it. You know, it's like you're always gut checking yourself and asking, like, are my experiences typical? You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, I think right now you're lucky that you have that experience because recently I had that conversation with Matt that we're used to some of the companies, like some of the bigger companies or some of the bigger teams that when you go in, they have somewhat of a standard understanding of technology or what you're putting in. So you don't have to really, um, I don't want to say dumb down, but you don't have to really make it non-technical to explain certain things. That's probably what you're going at because you're in a bigger company. But I remember recently we had a client. We have a client who's very small. It's different because they have no idea about any of the technical terms or web terms per se because they're not familiar with anything. Not that they're like they have other knowledge on different areas, but they just have. So it was very refreshing to have a conversation with them because lately, I didn't have to deal with that kind of situation because a lot of people already understood technical terms or what's new with the technology and what's going on with different things or AI or whatever. But this was a very clueless portion of the people. So like that I have to compensate the conversation to it, which is fine because it's not that they're not knowledgeable. It's that they're just never used to it.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
mean,
they kind
it's
of like
like
yeah.
it never hurts to just like like over communicate and just like bridge that gap
Hmm.
because like a lot of the time like people it's the vocabulary issue. It's like they lack the vocabulary for what they actually want. And it's
Hmm.
like if you can like bridge that communication gap, like they learn from it and they'll ask better questions in the future and just understand more about what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So one of the things I did want to touch base on some of the fun stuff, but I don't know how much of that we can reveal. Like I don't remember exactly because I know your weird outfits of pickles and all these different things. That was just Bloomberg, right? You
Yeah, well,
were
I mean,
you dressed up as a
Mhm.
I forgot you a pickle or mustard. I don't remember.
No, 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 the other guy was the mustard, I was the
Well,
pickle. So, yeah, yeah, like, I mean, honestly, I came in that day and I was like, it's Halloween, like, everyone's gonna be, like, partying, it's Halloween," and I get there and I'm the only one in the costume, and then it took, like, all day, and I found someone else who was, like, wearing a giant mustard suit, and I'm like, "Okay, we gotta get a picture together," like, we're the only people that actually, like, put it out there today.
no, you aren't the only people because I think that's when we're all in the office, but I don't know why you two are in the same room. You and the mustard were in the same room because you weren't in the same team. We had
Okay,
some
yeah,
like a
I did
pizza
not know. I
monster
did
going
not
on.
know that condiment. I did
Yeah,
not.
and you showed up, and then I remember I knew that when Betty told me, I think it was there. It's a Halloween. I know previously. I don't know if you're there. I think it was one of my first or second year there. We're passing by, and it was Halloween day. There's like a bunch of chairs in the like a so you don't have to reserve, but then there's a bunch of chairs that you can kind of do one-on-one talks.
Yeah.
There was a woman with a giant banana suit and talking to someone, and they look very, very serious. Betty and I were passing by, and Betty told me that, "Oh, that's HR," and she was giving
Were they
notice.
like laying someone off in a banana suit? Like, was that what was happening?
We found out later because we're passing by and found out like, oh, that lady's wearing a banana suit for the Halloween. Let's say we literally thought it's like, oh, cool, she's has a Halloween spirit. And walking by, and we found out she was a HR, and she was firing someone in a banana suit during Halloween.
Oh my god.
So I
That's
don't know if that was why, or like a lot of people didn't seem like they're participating in Halloween. And I remember I was like, I bet Tim's gonna show up with a ridiculous outfit.
I mean, I don't remember seeing any messaging about not wearing costumes to work. So, I mean, that seems like a personal decision. Like if you're laying someone off and you just decide to dress like a banana, like that's all you. I don't think like any company would have a rule saying don't do that.
Think she knew she was gonna be giving that message. I think she was just in a Halloween spirit.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Like for the rest of
but
that guy's life, he's going to be like, "Oh, did I ever tell you about the time I got fired by a banana?"
yeah.
Like that. I
Maybe he
mean,
made it easier for him.
ah,
Yeah. But,
yeah.
do you remember if anyone else actually showed up with the Halloween outfit? Because like, I know you did, but you made everyone laugh.
Yeah, I mean, I also showed up on Thanksgiving dressed like a giant turkey.
Yeah, I
So,
remember that.
yeah, okay. Yeah, that I tried wearing that like last year, but forgot to do it.
Yeah.
I had it like laid out for Thanksgiving. I was totally gonna do it while I like carved the turkey and totally forgot I still had it.
Yeah, I will have to find that picture and then embed it into this because I know
What
our
with the banana or the
No,
pickle?
your pickle of it. I don't think I have a turkey. I think I don't think I was there. Betty sent me the picture.
Okay. I gotta like check through my old hard drive and see if I could find those pictures because I remember I saved like a lot of photos from Bloomberg on like an
Yeah.
old hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, you did have some fun there. You were
It was fun. It was
yeah,
a lot of fun.
face. But yeah, so that was good conversation. I don't know if you want to get into AI or not, but I don't know if you have a strong feeling about it. I think we're kind of in agreement that it's at a place that you still need a lot of oversight. I don't know if you have any other thoughts that you want to share on that.
I mean, my thoughts are like it's a tool and you need to be like very, very deliberate with what you're asking it to do and double check all the code that you're committing that it's generating. Because I can't tell you how many times it's created test suites that I think are working just fine that pass. And then when you actually read what the tests are, they make no sense and they're very redundant. And you end up wasting more time than you would if you just wrote the whole thing yourself, just doing it the right way, you
Yeah,
know?
I
So,
totally yeah.
yeah.
It felt like you're talking to really, really junior developer who just started, who doesn't learn. Like, so it's gonna every time it comes back, it's kind of the combination of working with a like not to kind of trash in the outsource, like outsource company that when you say to build something, because they have different pools of people, when you ask to build one feature and then you found the bug and ask them to fix it, they have they assign it to different developer who's completely clueless about what happened there. So just kind of build something and change everything else. So it's
Yeah,
kind of like that.
it's
Yeah.
intelligence with no context. It's like it's trying so hard to get context, and the creators of these models and these tools have done a really good job, like, being able to gather context from different code bases, but at the end of the day, like, it still needs you to watch it like a hawk.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know if you saw like I don't know how much of vibe coding you tested out, but when you try to put something really simple and then ask you to change it, like maybe at least it's like 3, 5 times, every time it changes it, it doesn't change the specific area you want them to change. I just wanted them to change one thing, and they'll change like about 5 different things around it, and then they don't know how to revert it back. So it gets really chaotic. And instead of fixing it, let's say like you wanted to do a simple CSS change. Instead of fixing that specific area, it's gonna do the override. So you end up with like 1,000 important along the line, and then like so your CSS file goes ginormous, and then you just have same thing defined about 5 different times. So it's like that. So it's a very, very junior developer mistakes, but when you tell it to do it, it doesn't learn to adapt it very well yet. So that's my opinion on it. So like you still have a lot of overseeing from the senior person if you want to keep your code clean. And if you want your site to be performant, you can't just rely on, or secure even, you can't just rely on vibe coding. So
You're basically describing like exact things that I've seen in PRs that I've reviewed, like word for word, exactly.
yeah. So it gets very frustrating. That's why like Matt was like, so he played with vibe coding for a while just to kind of test it out. And he's like, when we have to hire a new person, I might have to get a new HR course because I've been yelling at the AIs for so long because they don't have feelings. So like, but coming to think that they start having feelings now. And he's like, because the way AI does now, I don't know if you noticed that it apologizes for what they did wrong, it still doesn't fix it.
Yeah, it's like, "You're totally correct. I
Yes.
totally messed up." Like, every single time.
Yeah.
Like,
So it's
"Wow, you have a great suggestion there." Yeah, I know, it's the right
yeah. But
suggestion. I mean, I feel like it would be, like, more fun to work with if you told, like, Cursor or whatever to, like, assume the persona of, like, a Dickensian orphan or, like, Donald Duck or, like, some actual character and just respond to me in like the voice of those characters,
oh,
instead of just like constantly falling over yourself, apologizing for failing to like write the code that I want you to work at. Just like entertain me while you're failing at least.
well, I'm gonna actually try that and let you know how it works.
I mean, I once asked like ChatGPT to just like respond to all my questions as like an aggressive New Jersey gym teacher. And it did a fantastic job.
Actually, given that kind of personality, I just had a specific person as a personality before, but that's actually a good thing. I haven't actually incorporated the cursor either, so I'll play with that and see if they give me any more constructive answer to it, or even like not annoying answer to it.
I mean, I like tools like Cursor because it has, like we were talking about context, like it has more context into your code base. It's a little more focused.
It does, but to a degree. Because I would think they would be smarter than that. But after, like, let's say if you're building on vibe coding for about 20 different iterations, it doesn't really know because it doesn't really know where they failed. And then it's just like it gets very chaotic really quickly after it fails.
Yeah, no, that's why I have all of these tools set to like always require like manual approval for every step because after a while, I'm just like, stop. You have changed so much code. Go back, knowing what you know now, and write it much simpler.
Yeah.
And of course, it apologizes up and down for like confusing itself, but then it does a slightly better job the next time. Yeah, no, there's also like agents files or like other ways to like set presets so that you can actually like try and persist like certain commands or like
Yeah.
best practices in a project. Like that's been extremely useful.
Yeah. And to embed into it, like give specific instructions and like do not change anything other than what I specifically asked for. There's like lists of things that I have to start documenting so that I can dump it in there before we and then
Yeah,
yeah.
and I mean, honestly, like the instructions that you give AI, it's also great documentation for yourself and for
Yeah.
like any developers onboarding to your projects. Cause like I remember like when I joined my current team and I just like pulled up all our repos and saw like the generated documents for AIs. And I was like, this is so understandable. Like, I know so much more about these systems just from reading these docs.
Mhm.
It's great for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a good point that like it's a learning curve for me too, because like I need to know exactly what I need to tell them to make sure that it's efficient or it's actually helpful for me. Otherwise, like I'm looking through it and it's like I should have just written it by myself kind of reaction.
Like, this was really fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that you guys have this podcast now.
Yeah, and then you're always welcome back. And next time when Matt's available, we can jump in again.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Stay tuned for the next episode on Monday afternoon.